Um, I was thinking, well, today's President's Day. Today's President's Day. Today's President's Day. A couple things I was thinking, because in this time where intellectually these historical archetypes, these historical figures of our past, have always been presented as being put upon a pedestal. The undercurrent of dismay has finally rise to the surface in this day, in this age. And so, it's super great, it's President's Day. We live in a day and age where the praise we had given before to the presidents, we are now denying in greater numbers, popularly. When the national anthem is played, many people, take a knee and can't be blamed for doing so. And in that sense, should also be praised for doing so, because insofar as they know, they've been fucked and they're sick of being fucked. And they're making a statement peacefully. Taking a knee is a phenomenal. Taking a knee to the national anthem is a great act within the war of peace. And I don't praise that enough. And certainly it's greater than any act I have ever publicly shown. I can't harsh it in any way. I am not greater to it, I am lesser to it. I am lesser to taking a knee. My only contribution is in a sense, because I live in the same time and have a little bit different of perspective, I'm offering a critique. What I liked about being an art major is that we did critiques, and an essential part of the critique wasn't just bashing, wasn't just debating. This is where, I've never experienced it anywhere else in my life, and I was an art major for approximately, accumulatively, over a span of time, about 2 years. I was an art major. About. But what I appreciated about that was the critique, and how it differs only slightly from peer review. Because the critique said, I like this. You are doing this part great. This part ain't working. Scientific review tends to only be like yes or no. But in art classes, drawing classes, painting classes, if say you did 3 or 5 paintings a semester, there'd be midway through, every few weeks, a critique. It's this is what you've been working on the last few weeks. What's up? So you have an opportunity to present your case with words in the critique with your image. That's it. And then there are responses. And the best part about that is you find things that you didn't know was. There are things that are working that you didn't know was working, and it's oh, I felt self-conscious about that. I felt bad about that. I felt like that was the bad part. People were like, that's the good part. But then there's other parts that maybe you still felt bad about, or maybe you felt good about. Or maybe if you're involved in artistic endeavors, and especially if you came up from the lower middle class or upper lower class, like either way, it doesn't even matter where you come from. There's always some kind of illustrative indoctrination into the art that you're performing, and trying to break free from that, not for the sake of breaking free of it, but to find the way in which your own person, woman, man, ha-man fits into the situation. Finding that shape and the expression of that shape, either two-dimensionally. You might have a two-dimensional impression of the world that you wish to recreate three-dimensionally. Or you might have a three-dimensional conception of the world that you're wishing to relate two-dimensionally. Or vice versa. But anyway, the practice of critique within artistic circles, within accumulations of artistic students, whether within a formally recognized institution or within a group of peers otherwise conjoined. That's a really powerful process. To get a synopsis from around a table, or from a synopsis of the round table, to have all those points conjoined, the oppositions and the conjunctions, the agreements and the disagreements coming together from different perspectives at the point, which is you. Yet around that round table, the round table is round in space and time. But atemporally and aspatially, when you're the point of focus, when you're the man, right? It's a round table, but we go around one by one. And when you're at the focal point, the circle ain't even, because all eyes are on you. Two, 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 from different directions. All of a sudden, the focus isn't at the center. It's on you. But by making every point along the circumference a center, that equalizes among egos the center. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. These are both the rational and the emotional reasons why I agree with what you're doing here and disagree with what you're doing there. And when there's 10 to 20 people around telling you firmly, especially if they're strong and kind of disagree, and you kind of disagree with them, but yet all these agreements come together. So you get 10, 20 opinions on you, good and bad, and they're all a little different. And the same for the person beside you. And the same for the person on the other side of you. And across from you. And diagonal from you. And straight across every which way. And to engage in that practice, that's powerful. Your critique. But what I wanted to say about today, President's Day, and I'm bumming that things have gone so long. Because I started cooking my supper, and I'm really excited for it. Because when I wake up in the morning, my first thought is, am I going to get it through the day? My second thought is, I have to get it through the day. My third thought is, what am I going to have for supper? My fourth thought is, I must save the world. My fifth thought is, fuck. President's Day. I don't blame people for wanting to rip down these statues. I think it's a good sign, actually. Even though, in a way, I disagree. Only in this much. If you are brave enough to risk your life to rip down these statues, to rip down these icons, man, eternity's calling for you, man. Like, you're on the brink, man. I mean, and there's no doubt, so far as, ripping down the colonial soldier statues. I mean, that's a necessity. That's long overdue. There's no doubt, no question, rip down these colonial statues. I'll say a little bit as a kind of lover of art history, I'd say, well, maybe it might be better to build a structure around these monuments and decorate them with commentary to create commemorative sculptural commentary around these things so that we remember that they were. We want to erase them, but unfortunately, tearing them down don't erase them. But I fully support tearing them down. So get into your philosophy if you want to pierce that out, but it's logical as shit. I fully support them being torn down, and the fact that they were ever erected is an abomination. The unfortunate thing is that when we tear them down, we tear down the abomination. The undoing of the Nazis was their documentation. They were meticulous. If the Nazis were not so meticulous, the lesson we have learned, or we are supposed to have learned, wouldn't be there. It is because they were so meticulous that we have learned. And that goes for everything in history. And it goes for the American Revolution and Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln, President's Day. And it's good that people are pissed about everything that happened. And it's good that people are pissed and rising up about slavery. This, cross-generational transmission of trauma and everything else. It's good. It's good that people are expressing and learning and growing. Even though I have a certain complexion, right? Like, I've had good times in my life, but my trajectory hasn't been great. And very tragic things have happened in my life. Yet recognizing that, I still recognize I have a better life than most people who have ever lived. I recognize that. And it's hard to deal with. It's very hard to deal with. What I want to call attention to today is what's beneath the underground. The Underground Railroad, we associate it with the Civil War. President's Day. Because the presidents we commemorate and make, right? President's Day used to be like the big day of selling cars. My whole life growing up, President's Day sale. Like President's Day basically meant like the banks have a day off and people are going to buy cars for cheap. That's pretty much what in my whole life President's Day has meant. It's not my fucking fault, right? But I'm responsible for it. I'm responsible for transforming this narrative. So it's no wonder that no matter what your race, when you look at President's Day, you're like, shit. Fucking cars and fucking money and fucking payments and fucking credit scores. And it's no wonder everybody's very pessimistic. Because most people below that line, and most people don't want to take responsibility. How do I know? Because I'm one. I don't like those numbers. What I wanted to say for President's Day, I don't know if this is going to work. What I wanted to say for President's Day. Got the black. I wanted to talk about Jefferson because he's taken some heat. As well he should. Jefferson's taken some fucking heat, man. Why is Jefferson taking some heat? Because of his black beauty. Sorry to be like that about it, but it's just that's the fact of the matter. Jefferson's taking heat over his black beauty. The narrative is he done wrong. Maybe he did. Now we know the Underground Railroad. We know it was a Civil War phenomenon, and they make movies about it. But how far back in time? How far back in time do we have to go? How far back in time do we have to go? To recognize that How far back in time do we have to go to recognize that the Underground Railroad, the path toward freedom away from oppression, reaches all the way back, all the way back. By golly, I think that's gonna work. I don't know how I'm gonna dry that. Or make it unflammable. Man. Good thing I'm a painter. Alright, in service to the needs of this video, because I need some light, but I don't want to light something on fire because this is still wet because I had to spray it so much. And if I light a candle, the whole thing is going to go. I've had enough of that. So I have these little LED flicker candle lights, which I've used previously. And this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Best I can. Won't light nothing on fire. Give it a couple. Give it another one. Maybe toward the end I'll put on a fire one once it's like lit up good. Come on, baby. Yeah, that's not working. I need fire. So I'll let it dry. What this is supposed to be, well, it's a weed bag, right? I bought some weed and they put it in this bag. Black bag. Make you feel bad. Rethink your life. But if you buy a cheesecake, they'll put it in a white bag. If you buy a cheeseburger full of cow shit, they'll put it in a white bag. Just saying. They're right to put this in a black bag. And they'd be right to put everything in a black bag. One of the things about, one of the wars of evil is that evil wars against the addicts. Because people who value only addiction, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, many of us, have access to dimensions that other people don't have access to. Yeah. We medicate ourselves so that we can get through the day. And that's it. It's not perfect, it sucks, but human beings are the only fight against the great mouth of the universe, the great mouth of the cosmos, the great mouth of this world, the only world we know. Everything else is speculation. But what we can say definitively, whether we are scientists, empiricists only, or creationists and spiritualists only, however you want to make that split, the singular fact remains that the thing we can all agree upon is that the only thing that we know of definitively, that collectively makes like a measurable difference upon the realm of butchery. The only thing that fights against the coldness of the cosmos and the coldness of the universe and the coldness of this very world that we live on and know. We are the only thing that fights against the coldness of both the physicality and the philosophy, or multiplicably the philosophy, the religiosity. The only thing that fights against the coldness whatsoever, not every religion or philosophy does, but some do. And those that do fight against the coldness of death and the philosophy of death and the killer, brutal, awful, terrible philosophy of the circle of life. Because most people aren't even aware of what could be called the circle of life. Promoting the idea of the circle of life is good, right? Now, the circle of life isn't good. It's terrible. It's the lie. We are not a circle of life. It is not eternal recurrence. It's eternal spirality. Dynamism increases complexity. And dynamism is an integral. I mean, to call it integral or essential is undermining the point of like the preeminency, the necessity of the dynamism of number. It is not a circle. It's a spiral, and it spirals on top of spirals. But there are harmonies, there are perfections, there are harmonic, resonant, repetitive shapes, kinda, sorta. Anyway, to make a long story long, seems like it's dry. I'm gonna take a huge risk right now. If it lights on fire, God fucking help me. Things are kind of bad for me in the physical world right now, but this seems important enough because it's President's Day. And I guess what I'm saying, I'm not planting a stake in the ground, but I am erecting a memorial, a temporal memorial. I'm having a candle vigil at the place where others have placed their stake in the ground. I don't agree with the stake they've placed in the ground, yet I respect them wholeheartedly for it. Because I know it sounds hypocritical, and it probably is. I was where you are. I felt the exact same way as you. And then I learned a little more. And realized, not even realized, come to know, by reading between lines. The thing is, once you read between lines, you can read between every line. And then all those lines become a lens. All of a sudden, all this linearity becomes a plane. And all these stacks of pages become planes upon planes, right? And they curve in a certain way. A book is a lens. You read enough books, you see enough videos. It's not just a book. A book is a special kind of story. You might never learn to read, like fucking St. Peter. He's the fucking rock. Dude's illiterate. Are you illiterate? Motherfucker built a church that fucking built a fucking world. So don't be so short on yourself. That's a prayer. That's a prayer, man. I don't have the authority to say it, but I have enough grace to pray it. Alright, we're gonna give it some fire. It might not work out super great. But we gotta try. We gotta try. What this is this is supposed to be a replica of the clock. This is supposed to be a silly little replica of the clock that Jefferson sat with at the foot of his bed. And Jefferson is especially hated, right? People want to tear down his monument, man. You do not. Maybe you do. I don't know. Jefferson was loved for a long time, which was good in its way, in its time. Jefferson has become hated in this time, which is a good thing. For the way in this time. But that Jefferson should forever be pushed to the dustbin, to my mind, would be a great mistake. However, I don't have the benefit of knowing those who come after, who could fill in the gaps. What I'm saying, not just implicitly, but explicitly, is that Jefferson was part of the Underground Railroad and Washington and Hamilton. All those fuckers, man. The way with the 3% in rags, naked men, eating rock tripe, lichens off of rocks to survive. To win the only kind of freedom that the world has ever known. Or the best kind, so to speak. And for those of us who might be ultra or super or hyper aware of the situation, are all tense, or all like, oh, this, that, whatever, you know. And yet there are others who are just like really happy, really successful, really healthy, really optimistic. And it's a mistake to set ourselves against each other, because that's what we want, right? I admit to being envious, jealous, even bitter envy, but not necessarily bitter envy, more like I'm pissed. I'm pissed my elders didn't transform me into what's possible of being today. I don't do shit. And there are these people like driving with like jetpacks off their arms and like, you know, doing skydiving or like human flying squirrel suits or, you know, crazy physics, this, that. And I'm just like, I go paint houses every day and come home and eat a can of beans or a vegan pizza and have a beer and some wine. But, like, if I'm not in this with you, then where the fuck am I? And if you're not in this with me, then where the fuck are you? But anyway, Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, he slept every day in Monticello, that place we hate, for what happened there, the story that happened there. Now, it took a long time. It took a long time to get from the white bread to the wheat bread on Jefferson, right? Now, motherfucker. It took a long time to get from the white bread. Oh, Jefferson great, Monticello, classicism, Raphael pastiches, fantastic, wonderful, we love it. Well, it took a long time to get from there. Well, never mind the whole, you know, the Jefferson, you know, the Washingtons versus the Jeffersons. So not everybody felt like that, but a lot of people felt like that. And the people who hated Jefferson hated him for different reasons than the people who hate Jefferson now hated him for different reasons than the people who hated Jefferson then. Mostly. But there's a little bit of overlap. Because he was scandalous. He was a garish rake, you know. All that. Rightfully. And I guess what I'm saying is that the Underground Railroad goes way And it goes forward. And for someone who slept with the symbol at his feet every day, which is basically the marrying together of the story of Sinui from Egypt, the entire fucking 18th dynasty, the Black Pyramid associated kind of with the story of Sinui, because you're talking about a couple different eminences. Heliopolis. The clock that Jefferson slept with at his feet was a marriage of the symbols associated with the gate of Heliopolis and the sun rising between the mountains of Akhenaten of the 18th dynasty, who was motherfucking Moses! Period. That's what Jefferson worshipped. That was the lie he stood upon to protect the truth. His slaves weren't his slaves. I'm fucking telling you. Jefferson's slaves were not his slaves. That was a front for the Underground Railroad that reaches back to Akhenaten for sure. And fucking Meritaten, beloved of the Aten, the beloved of God. Mary, beloved. Mary, the rebellion. The archaic meaning of Mary in Hebrew is the rebellious one, rebellion. The more modern Catholic interpretation is Mary. What is it? The sacred sea. Mary, the sea of sorrow. Sacred sea of sorrow. Put it all together. Beloved, Mary, M-E-R-I, Mary, beloved, Mary Totten. Beloved of the Aten, beloved of God, not the disc, no, the toroid. The shape that exists all the way down to where nothing is, because discs don't do that. Because this is the thing, mathematically, we have to ask ourselves. We have to ask ourselves. The truest form of reason is logic, and the truest form of logic is mathematics. And we perform mostly mathematics upon a plane. What's the truest form of a plane? A circle. A disc. No one ever stops to ask the question. In ideality, in idealism, in the ideal world, in the ideal realm, in the eternal realm, in the realm of quote-unquote Platonic forms, fuck Plato, Republic motherfucking bitch. Yeah. Read it. You won't agree. especially if you're that slow baby. Which was the whole test in the first place. Instead, we canonized the fucking test as if it was a proclamation. Instead of a denigration we were meant to rebel against to get in to the academy, which was a step down because Plato was kicked out from the Pythagorean school. So it's already a step down. Powerful motherfucker. Not the real deal. Socrates? Man, kick that old motherfucker to the curb. Socrates, Socrates, Socrates. Anybody who's talking about Socrates, get out. Socratic dialogue. That's just another form of fucking rhetoric, man. You can be a master of Socratic dialogue and be so far away from the truth it ain't even fucking funny, man. So, if you're looking for some of that crunchy shit, here you go. Right? Or look in the mirror. Or look a little bit at Diogenes. And look a little bit at, look a lot of bit at Heraclitus, man. Heraclitus smokes Socrates. Smokes. I just had to get that off my chest, and I'm sorry for being such a dick about it. Heraclitus smokes Socrates, and that's the fucking thing, man. The Socratic method. The Socratic tradition. Socrates is the father of Greek philosophy. Socrates! Dude, the fiction of Socrates came so fucking late in the game, it ain't even funny. And I must remind you that Francis Bacon called Plato and Aristotle the driftwood on the surface of philosophy. Francis Bacon. The fucking godfather of science and the godfather of conspiracy with spiral. There's conspiracy theory, and then there's the law of with the spirit, in spiritus, all that shit, right? I just want to get this light on. The whole thing with Jefferson and Washington, we look upon documents, so you gotta look at the documents, but, like, man, listen to Ron Chernow's, I think it's Ron Chernow's, like, George Washington biography. There's two things about it. Three things. The first thing is that it's so gushy with admiration, it will make you sick. Ron Chernow pours on the admiration and the hero worship of Washington. And that will make you sick. At the same time, he authentically pours on, like, what a miserable fucking life Washington had. So, like, if Chernow, or at least the, I don't know who, I can't remember who the voice actor was who read the book, but, because I listened to it on, an Audible book, it was like about 40 hours, I can't remember, maybe 20, maybe whatever, but, and like, it's gushy for Washington, which is like, ugh. But at the same time, like, if there weren't that gushiness, if it was just told bland and raw, like, Washington's life is so fucking despicable, miserable, horrible, awful, terrible, disappointing. Like, it's just one fucking misery after another when all the guy wants to do is farm. The only thing Washington wanted to do was learn how to farm. Like, he had this passion. He had this in his inner artistry. He wanted to farm. He wanted to learn about the innovations of farming, right? What I'm saying is that, okay, this is what I'm saying. What I'm saying about Washington is that the more or less, he established on his property more or less a town. Right? And there's all kinds of public documents of what happened on this town. Right? But let's say Washington was actually a student of the Grand Master teachers that the slaves were. Just say, imagine, you watch all kinds of movies, you read all kinds of books, you watch all kinds of news, you listen to all kinds of stories, right? You listen to all this shit. So now I'm bringing this up and it's like, it's just like, give me a fucking minute, man. You know? Give me a minute just to try to think this out. If you listen to that whole, I mean, that's a pretty big commitment. A 40-hour, 30-hour, whatever book. Like, that's a pretty big commitment, you know? Listen to that whole thing. But listen to the whole thing thinking about the fact that all along, Washington was part of the Underground Railroad and made that shit real so that it could be resolved in a way with Lincoln. And then later, that's the thing. People love Kennedy, hate Johnson. Johnson got it done. Why? Why did Kennedy have to be killed? From a God's eye perspective. Because the South would have never went along with Kennedy. Never. It had to be a good old boy. It had to be a good old boy that sent that shit through. Kennedy set the precedent and was killed for it. And that precedent was fulfilled by a dirty old bastard good old boy who's the only one who could have got it fucking done. God works in mysterious ways. President's Day. But what I'm saying about Jefferson at Monticello is he slept with this iconic fucking image that he designed under his feet. He slept with this at his feet, so it was under him. And when he tilted his head, when he had his head on his pillow, this was the image in front of him. Two obelisks, with the clock, with the circle, with the sun in the middle. Two mountains with the sun rising behind it. Akhenaten. The gates of Heliopolis. Two pillars and a gate. Black obsidian. The Black Pyramid. Eminensis. The story of Sinui. Of course, all that reaches back to Imhotep and Joseph and so on. Shit. I gotta light this up. I just lost my lighter. Kind of hope this works. I'm ready to be done. got a little work to do. It's not gonna work. That might work.